Friday. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends of all ages, it is Freeology Friday. I'm Derrick Day, and my man next to me is
I am Aaron Tomlinson. Good to be with everybody. How you doing, Derrick?
man. I'm doing 1,000% better at this particular moment.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
You know, it's like you ever have one of those weeks where you just say, okay, there's got to be something there's got to be a light at the end of this tunnel, and it can't be a fucking train.
Yeah, yeah.
This is that week.
Well, all right. Well, this is
What's in the glass, man?
I have a Bloody Mary tonight. So
A
just
Bloody
simple
Mary.
Bloody Mary mix and vodka.
Oh, I have. This is called Pampero Aniversario Venezuelan Dark Rum,
Mm,
and it is absolutely amazing.
wow. Yeah, that's
So,
different.
yeah, I'm absolutely enjoying this. And this is the first. I just opened this bottle. I got it for Valentine's Day, and
Hmm.
I'm just opening it up. My wife had also bought me a bottle of Irish whiskey. Um, but between my oldest son dropped in for a visit last week,
Hmm.
and so between the two of us, we pretty much knocked out half of that the
Wow.
Irish whiskey. So now it's the rum, but that's
All right.
yeah. So this week, I thought we'd get into something, um, because Aaron, one of the things I love about the stuff that you teach is that you have you brilliantly converge science and metaphysics. And I was watching a movie called Inner Worlds, Outer Worlds,
Hmm.
and it's made in 2012, and it talks about a lot about the convergence of science and spirituality, or science and metaphysics, and I learned something. Now, I never known this, but there is a science
Hmm.
called cymatics.
Hmm.
And this cymatics is like the study of the visible effects of sound and vibration on matter.
Hmm.
And when I saw some of these visible manifestations, now I've seen this like where people talk to water,
Yeah.
and they freeze the water, and they observe the crystallization
Yeah.
patterns of the freezing, and how when you speak love, happiness, kind words to the water, you get these really beautiful crystalline formations,
Mm.
beautiful symmetry and patterns. But when you speak ill, when you speak hate, when you speak negatively to the water and then freeze it, you get these really distorted, ugly
Hmm.
patterns.
Yeah.
And and I thought about this because I'm really big into quantum physics, and in
Hmm.
in in quantum physics, the holy grail of quantum physics is unified field theory, right? That everything, that this is this great field, and they talk about that in cymatics too. They created a simulated map of what the connectivity of the universe looks like. And what's interesting about that, have you ever seen those uh, or read about the fungus that's ubiquitous in all of the plant life in all the world?
I'm
You
somewhat
know,
familiar with that. Yeah.
yeah. And so this fungus, they say, is essentially the internet of plants.
Okay.
That it provides a transport or communication transport to the entire plant kingdom. And so what they were showing in Inner Worlds, Outer Worlds was this simulated connectivity of all things in the universe. Um, and anyway, so this unified field is one thing, but where a lot of physicists are now is on string theory. And string theory is the thing that goes beyond the standard model of particle physics, right? That identifies, quantifies subatomic particles. But they say that that everything is made of strings. And the interesting thing about string theory is that the standard model has no accommodation for gravity. Gravity is the one thing that doesn't work in the standard model, right? Or the standard model can't explain. But string theory, on the other hand, does. And so basically through string theory, physicists have come up with this thing, another particle that's not in the standard model called the graviton. And that the graviton is the particle that basically governs gravity as we know it. But and so anyway, string theory basically says that beneath the level of the lepton, the boson, the electron, that there are these strings, and these strings can be plucked in different ways. Because, like, essentially a string is a string, but the vibration of the string creates a physical or energetic manifestation.
Right.
So it's vibration. And then that ties into Taoism that says that all is vibration, right? So all of this, I just found it really fascinating. And I don't know if you saw that part of the movie where the guy he put sand on this metal plate and began to stroke the metal plate with a violin bow.
Yep.
And the sand began to organize into patterns. And this guy, Leftwasser, I think is his name, he cataloged all of these different patterns based on how the bow struck the metal plate.
Yep.
And then, sound, when you apply sound to water, you begin to get organized patterns, things that look like the flower of life, the seed of life, the tree of life, right? Numeric or mathematical patterns that we've come to know. And these things begin to, like, if you look at, we're used to looking at DNA from like a side view, the ladder, the twisted lattice, the double helix, right? But they said if you look at DNA from the top down, look at it as if you're looking at it looking down, it forms like these patterns similar to these same patterns that Leftwasser and others have discovered. So I just thought that all of this was really, really fascinating. And so when I reached out to you earlier this week, I said, hey, I got a great topic.
Yeah.
Because this was really fascinating me, because I was actually learning. And I think I've watched this movie now 3 times this week, just this week, because every time I look at it, I see something different. And it was really, like I said, just really fascinating. But that's my opening, man.
That's interesting. Yeah. So I had not ever heard the term either, cymatics. When you suggested the topic, I'm like, sure, what is it?
Yeah.
And so I watched the documentary. It's very well done, very informative, very interesting. But the synchronicity was interesting as well, because I had been listening to lectures from Ibn Alexander. And for people that don't know who he is, I can't even remember the name of the book he wrote. How bad am I? But he was a neurosurgeon who was a atheist, and he got a really, really rare and bad form of meningitis, and he ended up having this near-death experience. And it's not your typical, I mean, there's some things that are typical about it, right? Because there's patterns to these things, but it's not your typical, definitely not your typical experience, in that there was no religion involved with it. There was no Jesus, there was no Moses or God, or
Yeah.
Krishna or, anything like that. But what was so interesting to me was the way he describes in this experience that he had, the way that he describes the nature of the universe and how consistent that is with ancient views from philosophers like Plato, as well as the Vedic texts and the Kabbalah, the
Mhm.
Hermetica. They all kind of had these similar cosmologies or ideas of how the universe was structured and the way the universe worked that involves vibration. Like that's one of the laws of the Hermetics, right? That everything is vibrating. And so I'm struck by these similarities as I'm listening to Ibn Alexander's talk. And by the way, one of the things that's so interesting about his experience is, number one, he's a neurosurgeon, so he knows a lot about the brain, obviously. And he had this meningitis bacteria that completely destroyed his neocortex, like completely destroyed it. It was not functioning. And so the scientific community is near-death experience talk than they would other people, because there's the thought out there that your brain is doing that while you're dying or while you're close to death as sort of a coping mechanism. DMT gets released and you have these far out experiences. The only problem with that is everything that you would experience from a sensory perspective in your mind all exists in the neocortex, and those parts were completely destroyed.
Wow.
Yeah. And he shouldn't have even been able to retrieve any kind of memory or any. He talks about when he came out of this coma that he saw these beings that were his wife and his children, and he had no idea what they were. And the only thing he could remember was the experience that he had. He had no language. He had no memory. He had no even to know that he was a human being, because that's how far gone the neocortex was. Wow. And in a matter of, couple weeks, he got his speech back. I think within 6 months, he remembered everything, even how to do neurosurgery. So really fascinating story. But what was so interesting to me was when I started watching Inner Worlds, Outer Worlds, or is it Outer Worlds, Inner Worlds? I can't remember. I think it's Outer Worlds, Inner Worlds, right?
Yeah.
When I started watching it, the way they were talking about everything being in vibration, and it's to me, it's a beautiful depiction of just this. I think they called it the dance of the universe, that there's just this vast, intricate network of swirling and vibrating energy that forms in patterns, and then these patterns explain the makeup of our physical world. I love that, but it was so in line with the things that Ibn Alexander is saying in his story about the nature of the universe. And so I just found that interesting. I really latched onto that. I was going to say something else about vibration, and I just lost my train of thought. So I'll bounce it back to you.
Yeah, no, cool, man. But this was like really is like fascinating to me, because we think, like, one of the things that they were doing in the movie, they were talking about the effects of sound on water, and so if you think about the human body,
Mm-hmm.
the body is mostly water.
Yeah.
So when you, and it's funny how, I mean, everybody, I don't care who you are, you can go back to some period in your life
Mm-hmm.
where there was some piece of music, a song, an instrumental, something that when you heard it, it moved you. It got down into your spiritual fabric. And it makes perfect sense, and I thought about this too, like when you talk about music, like a G note
Mm-hmm.
If you play a G note is a happy note. It's an upbeat note.
Mm-hmm.
But if you play an E is a sad or a melancholy note.
Mm-hmm.
Now, nobody really defines that.
Mm-hmm.
It just is. It's something that the G note has a certain effect. The E note has another effect. And do you know that every car horn that when you hit the horn on your car, it's an F note?
I did not know that.
Yeah. Why is that? Because F note is it sounds an alarm.
Yeah.
It's something that causes an excited response.
Yeah.
So all of these things, and this always, like, not to pluck anything from the Bible, but when you talk about the power of words,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
What you say, and this is something that you've talked about this too, about how you manifest your reality. It's everything begins with a thought. It begins with your consciousness, right? And so this consciousness, some reaction in that spurs a thought, and this thought in turn manifests words,
Mm-hmm.
sounds, right? And so these sounds then begin to your sounds create reality. I always think about this like the same architectural firm that designed the Sears building, where it was now called the Willis Tower in Chicago. This same firm is the one that developed or designed the Burj Khalifa, tallest building in the world. So this company has been at the forefront of tall buildings through its entire history. And when I think about it, they said that the architect who first imagined the Burj Khalifa sketched it out on a cocktail napkin.
Mm.
But he didn't just sketch it out on a cocktail napkin at an airport bar. This is the story. But he's actually, as he's sketching this out, he's talking to someone. The words are being released into the atmosphere. And these words begin the genesis of a reality.
Wow.
And so I think about this like we, like you'll meet someone. It's just like, let me pick on you, Aaron,
Okay.
because you're my dude, and it's not anything bad, but it's like when we first had a conversation,
Mm-hmm.
I think that there was a vibe
Yeah.
between us. There was something that resonated between your spirit and mine, and that resonance is what makes this thing that we do on Friday nights possible, right? So similarly, there are other people who we encounter that you say, "Ooh, I don't like his vibe. I don't
Yeah.
like her vibe."
Right.
And so that vibe or the positive vibe creates a reality,
Yep.
right? The negative vibe creates a reality. But this reality, God, there's so many ways I could go with this, but like the heart, right? The human
Right.
heart, they say, has an electromagnetic field that's about 6 feet in diameter.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's the human heart, right? So when we come together, that electromagnetic field begins to mesh with the electromagnetic field of others, and it either attracts or repels.
Mm-hmm.
And that creates a reality. But one of the things that I think that why this field is so powerful, because I think this field detects the thoughts and the words of the person that it comes in contact with.
Yeah.
So your vibration has several components. One, your consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
right? Your consciousness, and that creates a vibration in your thought,
Mm-hmm.
which then creates a vibration in your physical being, or you could say, your heart center or your mind center, or you could say chakras or something like that. But that, and then from the being, the vibration of the being comes the vibration of action,
Mm-hmm.
right? What do you do? What do you say? And so that when you say things and do things, that they too become data points in your vibration.
Mm-hmm.
And so someone else, their vibration can pick this up and say, okay, either that resonates with me or it doesn't resonate with me. But this whole thing about sound is what we say as humans, what we say, or other guttural noises like grunts, whistles,
Mm-hmm.
snorts, chortles, right? That all of these things, um, they're sounds that have a certain frequency that have an impact on others around us, and that's the man. I'm gonna kick it back to you because like I'm feeling a rabbit hole coming on, and I
No,
just stop.
I love where you're going with it, and just thinking about music. It's I don't know why music in particular, but it was always interesting to me that it's ubiquitous to humanity, that every culture that we know of had some form of music or working with those vibrations. And think about how music, you talked about how the different notes on the musical scale impact us,
Mhm.
even at an emotional level, right? So think about how, and this is where it's interesting to think about vibration being a bridge between the inside and the outside, or between consciousness and matter. Because think about how music affects your mood, or can at least affect your mood. Like, they know this in Hollywood. Nobody puts, John Philip Sousa to a horror movie.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it just kills the mood, right? There's always kind of that creepy music. I think of like how that first Halloween movie, like they probably did it the best, right?
Yep.
The to create that mood. But here's an interesting thing, and I almost started the conversation by asking this question, and I don't want it to be offensive to anybody. So I swear, in this day and age, people get offended at anything. But if I were to ask you the question, is it better to be born blind, or is it better to be born deaf? Which one would you pick? There's actually an answer to that question. An objective answer to that question. It is more handicapping, I'm not even sure I can use that term anymore. I don't know. I'm trying to tread lightly here. To be born deaf, because it impacts your ability for your brain to develop. Your brain needs sound in order for cognitive development to occur.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that's really interesting is that, they can prove beyond any question that sound and vibration will change your brainwave pattern. That your brainwave pattern, which is a vibration in and of itself, will synchronize with the sounds around you, which is really fascinating. So, for example, if you're listening, you've got a beta wave pattern, which is, if you were to look at it, it's short and fast, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're listening to heavy metal music, or you're listening to something really driving like that, you're going to go into a beta brainwave state. If you slow the music down, you listen to Mozart, you listen to Beethoven, you're going to go into an alpha pattern, which is slower and longer wavelengths on your brain. But it gets even more interesting. If you go with certain tones and you wear headphones, you can completely, the tones will completely change your brainwave state, and you can go through all the cycles of sleep. So, for example, there are certain tones that will put you in an alpha, which is like as you're kind of just resting and relaxing and not quite asleep yet.
Yep.
Theta is the dream world state. And then delta is deep sleep, where you're not even dreaming, where you're just, there's nothing there.
Yep.
That's a delta pattern. You can actually go into a delta pattern while you're awake by manipulating brainwave patterns through the power of sound. So it's interesting to me how vibrations around us impact us at the level of our thoughts and our feelings and our moods. And I don't think there's been enough exploration into how sound can be used to produce healing. So last thing I'd say about that, there's this medicineless hospital in China where they basically use meditation and chant over people and their conditions in order to heal them. And there's videos out there where you can see a tumor shrinking as they're making these really weird sounds, guttural sounds, over this person, literally through the laying on of hands. And I was actually going to go get some training there right before the pandemic. Can you believe that? I was
Wow.
planning a trip to China, and then the pandemic happened. And so I never did do anything with that. But that was so fascinating to me. I think the potential of understanding vibration and its potential to improve our lives really needs to be explored more.
You know what? I'm really glad that you talked about that, because one of the things before excuse me, before my exodus from Christianity, I was really focusing in on certain sounds, right? Like there's a frequency 528 hertz that's said to be the frequency of love. That when love is present, the resonance is 528 hertz, and there are songs that are in 528 hertz. The Beatles, "All You Need Is Love," is literally a 528 hertz song.
Interesting.
And there's also a frequency of healing, and that's 174 hertz.
Interesting.
That there are cases where applying the 174 hertz sound or vibration to a diseased part of the body cause something to change. And so I'm going to pull something up real quick through the magic of our tool here. So let me do this.
Yeah.
Let me
Very
see.
interesting.
Yeah, I'm trying to get rid of our overlay here just for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, this is like the different diseases,
Mm-hmm.
and the frequency or the patterns that are made by applying certain sounds to them. And so hang on for a second, I need to look at this from a different angle. Bear with me for just a second.
I mean, but how cool would that be if that was really the key to unlocking healing, and you could have treatments that were non-invasive?
Non-invasive.
Instead of having surgery to cut out cancer, if they could apply a certain vibrational pattern to the area where the cancer is and change its
Here's the thing.
configuration.
This is actually happening, right? Because I don't know if you know this or not, but there is a non-invasive surgical, they call it surgery, a non-invasive surgical procedure where they apply sound waves. Basically, they put you in an immersion tank, and they bombard your lower body with these sounds, and they use this to break up like kidney stones and gallstones.
Interesting. No, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And it's not something that's normally done, and I think that it only happens with smaller masses that are in the body, but also like treating cancers. They're treating cancers with microwaves, right? And microwave is a radio frequency. So when you're doing microwave therapy for cancer, for like say prostate cancer, that's actually a type of sound treatment.
Wow.
But in this particular slide, you see this like there's the etheric field, and
Hmm.
then they show rheumatoid arthritis, atherosclerosis, anemia, and then they also show 144 hertz and 132 hertz. And basically, what they're doing in this particular slide, they're applying applying these frequencies to these different ailments, and it said that these um, applying these frequencies has had therapeutic effects on
Wow.
these conditions. And what am I getting at here is that, like, what if that it's just this simple as saying, okay, I'm going to speak life to this,
Mhm.
um or that if you speak love to it, or that you speak a positive outcome to it. We were talking about this before in another conversation between the two of us, and that we've both seen healing.
Right. Right.
you know so what causes this healing? Well, I think that first of all, in the quantum sense, that this agreement causes a wave function to collapse, and that creates something that when the wave function collapses, there is an agreed upon reality that emerges from that. But what if that part of the process of agreement is that we are on a collective consciousness wavelength,
Hmm.
and that we collapse this wave function and begin to speak something in a united form.
Hmm.
That not only does the wave function collapse and create a reality, but there is something that happens through the vibration that's created by our speaking, that alters that reality, or reshapes it, or remodels it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
man,
It's mind blowing. Yeah, because I was thinking about that too. Because like I can't get away from the first part of the movie, and I realize probably maybe not very many viewers have seen the movie, but they talk about this dance of vibration that is the fabric of
yeah,
creation, and how it organizes itself into patterns. But it's a dance. It's interactive, and so that's an incredibly empowering thought, right? So we're not only affected by the vibrations around us, but we're affecting the
yeah,
patterns themselves. And so this explains so much about just change, like breaking a habit, like you're changing a pattern, a vibrational pattern. But then because it's all playing with itself,
yeah,
I can't find the right word to say what I'm trying to say. Um, then when you change those patterns about yourself, you change the way you think, change the way you feel, change the way you speak. Um, then you're affecting more than just yourself. You're affecting the vibrational patterns that are around you, and you're changing the resonance, right? So if you think about what resonance and dissonance is, resonance is when two sounds harmonize and come together, and dissonance is, this because of how they make
I
engines
know.
quieter, right?
Yep.
You send out a different frequency, so there's actually a sound coming out that's canceling uh, the other sounds around because it's creating dissonance there. And so it's just interesting to think that if everything in our life is connected in this vibrational pattern, then what happens when we change what we're resonating with and what we have dissonance with? How does that affect nature? How does that affect circumstances? How does that affect outcomes? How does that affect our health? How does that affect money? How does that affect, everything being connected in that relationships? So it's a super empowering thing to think about too, that I'm not just swimming in this ocean of vibration and what the hell's going on, but I'm participating in it because I'm
Right.
also a pattern of vibration, and I have some choice or some level of choice on what patterns I'm vibrating with, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, and this is really powerful when you talk about that dance and talking about being able to participate. Like it's the difference between watching a football game and actually being on the field playing.
Mm-hmm.
Because now when you're on the field playing, you're actually this is beyond immersion. This is like where
Yeah.
immersion says that I'm in the midst of it and I'm
Right.
able to observe it
Right.
from this point of immersion. But if you're actually on the field playing, it's beyond immersion. You're actually impacting, influencing,
Mm-hmm.
informing what's going on.
Right.
And when if you think about this, that man, I'll tell you something, that if we, humanity, really grasp this, how powerful we become.
Right.
Because now I'm tapped into something higher. And so this goes back to something that you teach and you hammer this all the time. Consciousness, everything is consciousness, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this consciousness has it has a wavelength, it has a frequency. It is something that alternately resonates and dissonates, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In my God, it forms like something like a sine wave,
Yeah.
or like the pattern of an EKG, or the business cycle. It goes up, it goes down. In other words, it is life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what? Listen, Aaron, I'm going to tell you something. When I was watching this movie, and then
Yeah.
as I was doing this study on the whole cymatics thing, and and that word cymatics comes from the Greek word cyma, which means to vibrate or resonate, right? I was thinking about you and this whole consciousness thing, and how. So watch this. This is why I love this, because this kind of harmonizes where you are and where I am.
It does. That's a good point.
Because you're like, all is consciousness, and consciousness is huge, it's vast, it's wide, it's deep, right?
Mm-hmm.
But for me, my my scientific engineering background says, okay, that's great, but I want to quantify it, right? So now
Right.
I can get this into frequencies. I can get this into chunks. I can't observe the whole of it, but I can gather small chunks of it
Yeah.
that I can measure. And because of that, because I can get this, now I can say, I know that this exists,
Mm-hmm.
because I have some metric because here's the problem. Like with spirituality,
Mm-hmm.
spirituality says, I feel it, therefore it is.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. You will feel it differently than I do.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Or there may be times when you feel it and I don't, or I feel it and you don't.
Right.
And so at that level, it would seem to be random.
Yeah.
And if it's random, can anything random be considered reliable?
Right.
Can you base your faith or your trust in something that is unreliable? But on the other hand, if you are able to say, I know that if I play this particular frequency,
Right.
that I know beyond the shadow of doubt, this is the result I'm going to get, and it's going to be 100% of the time. So what does that mean? That this consciousness and this is another thing. I'm gonna say this and I'll shut up.
No, good, man.
That I've learned now, Aaron, to stop calling things inanimate objects.
Wow.
Because if consciousness is real, if
Right.
it's a thing, and everything that we know of, whether we could perceive it or not, is comprised of the vibration of consciousness, then there is no such thing as an inanimate object. That everything has some life somehow. And again, going back to this movie, guys, if you're watching this, go back and watch this, Inner Worlds, Outer Worlds. It's actually Inner Worlds, Outer Worlds, but you got to go back and watch it because one of the things they show rock patterns and the veins in rock formations. Veins are typically found in living organisms, or what we call living organisms. And here's where I'm going to kick it back to you, Aaron, because there's an episode of Star Trek where they find this. They're on this planet that's mining these silicon orbs, and they discover this creature called the Horta. And the Horta was a life form that was silicon based and not carbon based. And come to find out that these orbs that they were mining out of these tunnels were the Horta's eggs.
Mm.
In other words, this thing was a living rock.
Yeah.
And that has some major implications. Like right now, there is snow in Southern California. Yeah. When was the last time there's snowed in Southern California? I mean, matter of fact, the entire state of California has been blanketed in snow. California. And so what am I getting at? Could it be that if all is alive, if all is consciousness and all is vibration, could it be that the earth is a living thing and it happens to be in distress right now?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that's where I'm going to stop. But
no, I'm tracking with you 100% because I'm thinking about this from a neuroscientific perspective. And this is hard for people to get. This is really hard for people to get. Everything that we experience with our 5 physical senses is presented to us by our brains. Everything.
Yep.
So what that means is I'm holding this pen, but this pen is not so you could think about the human brain as a veil. Maybe that's a way to think about it.
Yep.
If you could pull back the veil, your sensory perceptions as a veil. If you could pull that back, this would look nothing like this. This would feel nothing like this. They don't know what it would be because as human beings and observers, we're all stuck in this matrix of reality that neuroscience proves beyond any shadow of doubt exists. So this, if you think about it, what if you pull back the senses? What if you pull back those veils and you discover that everything is actually vibration and patterns of vibration? And this is a pattern of vibration that I experience because of my mind as being solid, that I experience because of my mind as making a mark on the paper. or if I'm picking up my glass, I'm experiencing, I'm really just a vibration interacting with another vibration, but it has a material.
So let me jump in here real quick, because I have a little thought experiment I want you to participate with me on.
Sure.
Because you have a glass. Raise your glass, right?
It's almost
Raise
empty.
your glass, right?
Yeah.
Take your index finger, your right index finger, and stick it into your glass. Touch the liquid.
Okay.
You're drinking it, so it's your fingers cooties, right?
Yeah.
So now, what do you feel?
It feels wet and cold.
It's wet and cold, right? Now take that same finger and then touch your table.
Well,
and what does that feel like?
1 second. Yeah.
Solid.
I don't want to get tomato stain on my tablecloth. Yeah, it's solid. Right. Yeah, I see where you're going with it.
But here's the thing: what the chemical composition of what's in the glass is not significantly different than what's on the table, right?
Right.
What makes that different, right? Or if you could say, okay, I am 80% water. You touch your forehead, right? Your forehead's warm, right?
Mm-hmm.
Soft, supple, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is cold, wet, right? Same molecular patterns. But what makes them different is the vibration. It's the vibration that the difference of vibration, the delta of vibration, that allows us to perceive differences in things.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, and again, if we understand, Aaron, this is what I'm gonna go way out, I'm gonna go way the fuck out on this one, right? If Jesus existed, and if the Bible story is true, then when Jesus appeared to his disciples in the locked room, right? The way that Jesus did this is he was able to alter his vibration.
Right.
In other words, he raised his level of consciousness to the point where he was able to reshape his matter to the point where he was able to traverse a solid wall. What am I getting at? Imagine if we understand this, appropriate this, what then can we not see? What then can we not explore? Because once we traverse matter, that means that we can traverse space. And if we traverse space, then that means we can traverse time. And then we become, man, I'm going to tell you something. This what I
got to jump in because I'm growing in real time. Because I'm realizing how much semantics gets in the way of stuff. let me say what I mean. Like you talked about this movie kind of harmonizing where we're at, right? Like if I say everything is consciousness and you come back, everything is vibration or everything is energy. What if we're just talking semantics? Because, and I think consciousness might even not be the best term. I'm just thinking out loud right now. I'm processing.
Yeah.
Because what does that mean to someone? And see, here's the problem. Like the biggest problem in neuroscience is they don't even have a way to define consciousness. I've heard experts say there's not one sentence that can be written to describe what consciousness is. And so by that, I think they're talking about awareness, or they're talking about, I don't know. But I just know it's a mystery. It's very much a mystery.
Yep.
So the word itself is probably problematic. So let me run this at you, because we tend to think of consciousness as the voice in our head, or like I just did, conscious awareness. I'm aware of something, right?
Yeah.
But again, those are things that are being produced for us by our brain. The mystery of consciousness is not are our brains involved in what's going on. The mystery of consciousness is does that experiencer, put it that way, exist in the brain as a result of the brain, or is it using the brain as sort of an oscillator, if that makes sense?
Yeah.
And there's no good answer to that question. So if we start thinking about vibration and we start thinking about, as a human being, I experience this dance of vibration as sight, sound, touch, solid matter, right? But so here's where I'm going with this. So what happens? I've heard stories. Okay, calm down, Aaron. I'm trying to go a million
I
different
know
ways.
I'm feeling the same way, man. But go on.
What if when we die, we're simply shedding our bodies, and so we can no longer participate in the reality of this vibration, in reality as it is, in the same way that we did when we had our bodies? So in other words, we don't necessarily leave space even. We just we shed this interpreter of reality that we experience as our physical bodies. So what happens if we shed the interpreter, but we're still present, but we're present in a whole different experiential way?
Yeah.
Because you see where I'm going with it.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, like, the growing in real time part is, like you said, with that harmonizing thing, what then is consciousness? What if consciousness is just this? What if consciousness is the organizing principle of patterns of vibration out of which everything in the universe exists? Does that make sense?
I follow you, but I think consciousness, along with what you've been teaching, is bigger than that. I think that the holy grail again of quantum physics is the unified field theory. I believe that consciousness is the unified field. Consciousness is like, we talk about dark matter, dark energy, right? I learned something again from this movie, that only 4% of the universe is atomic matter that we can quantify, right? The rest of it is either dark matter or dark energy, right?
Right.
So what if the dark matter, the dark energy is that consciousness? It's that thing. It's like that fungus, the ubiquitous fungus that serves as the World Wide Web for all plants. Let's say this energy is what connects everything that exists, right? And so that's the greater consciousness, right? The aggregate awareness of all things. But then we have an interpretation. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to take my glasses off, right? So when we die, right, all we're doing is we're taking the glasses off.
Right.
And so now we see it as it actually is, not how we're conditioned to see it.
Yeah.
Or at least that's my thought.
So the other thing that I loved about this documentary, and I'm shifting just a little bit, but I want to speak to how it really resonates with where I'm at in my own quest. I got into some literature, like a field of study. It's really fascinating. I don't even know quite how to describe it, but I'm looking at the ancient world very differently than I used to as a result of the things that I'm studying, the things I'm learning. It's causing me to look at the Bible very differently, and the Gospels and everything completely differently than I'd ever looked at it before. And the more I understand about these ancient cultures, ancient Greece, ancient Egypt are the ones that I'm exposing myself the most to right now.
Yeah.
But in this movie, they bring up the Mayans, they bring up the Aborigines, they bring up, and then the East, the Hindu wisdom and all that stuff. And I really, really think now that we are, how do I say this? we are so arrogant
Yeah.
because of our modern scientific advances that we completely underestimate the wisdom of the ancients, the things that they knew, the things that they understood,
Hmm.
and the things really, as I understand the history of it, were lost to us, at least in the West, primarily thanks to the church,
Yep.
because they had a need to destroy this ancient knowledge.
Yep.
But when you look at Pythagoras, or you look at Plato, or you look at, um, oh, there's one of the other philosophers, I can't remember his name right now. They were all mystics, Derrick, and that's people don't realize that they were all mystics.
Yep.
There were miracles attributed to them. There were um, all kinds of things. So I'm playing with this idea, and I can't prove it one way or the other, that the ancient, well, this I know for sure, the ancient philosophers were the priests. They learned their philosophies in the temples. So the temples originally were not necessarily in any way religious like we think about it today.
Right.
The priesthood was not in any way what is represented to us today when we think priesthood. They were sacred schools of knowledge
Right.
and
Exactly.
wisdom, and so the priests were the guardians of that. In the uh, more indigenous cultures, the shaman,
The
the
shaman.
medicine
Yeah.
man, the seer was the keeper of the wisdom traditions. That was part of their responsibility. It wasn't just, shaking a rattle over somebody trying to chase
Yeah.
off the spirits and heal them. They kept alive the mythos of their culture. And man, it's just fascinating. And this documentary, I thought, really brings some of that out. And so in the one, I guess what I'm trying to say is we look at ancient people like they're stupid, and we think they just had myths and they believed them literally, like they literally believed. And certainly the common person, there's evidence that they did. But when you got into the temples, then what they would call the mysteries would be explained to you, and you would see this is not literal at all. There's a myth here to help us explain the nature of reality.
Yeah. I mean, it's like when you take allegory, right,
Yeah.
and use that to explain things, because again, we think, and I'm guilty of this. I'll raise my hand and say I'm guilty of this, because I'll say, well, 21st century, we live in the information age, therefore, we know more. But when we're always turning back to the Epicurus, the Aristotle, the Socrates, right? We're turning back to these, we're turning back to ancient Kemet, Sumeria, Babylonia. We're going back to a lot of these things, like the Akashic record, right? All of these things, man, wisdom. So yes, there are some things. There is some ancient wisdom. There are some things that were people were closer to the earth then, because they
Mm-hmm.
didn't have the distractions that we have now. So
Mm-hmm.
so yes, I agree that there's a lot of ancient wisdom that we overlook. But the one thing that I want to get back to is that, like, when we talk about how does this whole cymatic thing tie into today's world,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, what does it? Um, I mean, we could talk about how sound influences water, or and in the same movie they were showing how when they introduce like cornstarch to the water, and then introduce these same frequencies to it, that you begin to get these 3D shapes, right? And you begin to get patterns that look like life,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, what does that mean? Like, what I mean, it, um, I think about things. I mean, I think about things like sexism. I think about things like racism. I think
Mhm.
about things like cultural divisions and national divisions. But if we were to come to this conclusion that we're all one, right, and that we are all influenced and informed by the frequencies of life,
Mhm.
and that we have the power, like you said, to not just be a victim of it or to be influenced by it, but that we can actually influence and inform it. Right?
Mhm. Mhm.
What does that change
Mhm.
if we? I believe that if we, and I hate this word because I hate the word humility. I hate humble,
Mhm.
mostly because it's overwrought. But if we were to assume a posture of humility
Mhm.
and say, okay, I not only want to understand how this informs me,
Mhm.
but how can I influence, impact, and inform through it?
Mhm.
And I think that what happens is that when if we do that, if we just, and I, you can tell I'm really struggling with this.
No, I'm right there with you.
But
It's like,
if we just humble ourselves,
yeah,
I hate that word, uh,
yeah.
and just say, okay, I want to receive what this consciousness. No, better yet, not receive. Receive says that it's passive. No, I want to participate in what this consciousness is doing.
Mhm. Mhm.
What can we change, Aaron? That's
Yeah, the implications are staggering, right? I mean, and I love, Greg Braden and Joe Dispenza both teach, and
yeah,
they're taking from Neville Goddard, but they're also bridging this thing of science and spirituality, that we communicate with the field um, mostly through our emotions and through our feelings. And so the idea is that our thoughts are very limited in their power to affect change, but that when we align or get what they call, coherence between our thought and our feeling, and we feel, Neil Goddard, he's famous for the book The Feeling is the Secret, uh, that, as you mentioned, that field that goes out from our heart about 6 feet or whatever, that it's communicating then with this um, infinite field in which everything's connected,
yep,
and it's creating change. So the way we're feeling towards and about something with intention then can attract that into our lives, or can at least influence it, um, for better or for worse, right?
yeah.
And
The
so
law of attraction.
one of the things that Greg Braden introduced me to, and I was just trying to look it up, but I can't remember enough of it to. My, Man, my memory, I don't know what's going on with it. I keep bringing it up to my doctor, and they keep saying it's just one more trip around the sun than you had
Yeah,
last.
no, dude. Here's the thing. You're not far removed from a surgical procedure, and so
Well,
you
that's
know
true too. That's
yeah.
true too.
So yeah,
But yeah, see, I lost my train of thought because I started thinking about, oh, that we're communicating with this field through our feelings. And so one of the
yeah,
things that Braden brought out was, like, in 1976 or something. It was during the Carter administration, and there was a lot of conflict in one of the countries in the Middle East, probably more than one, but I don't remember which one. But they took a group of people who were trained meditators and could hold a state of peace and hold a state of compassion for a lengthy period of time. and they went to this place and they got together and they all meditated, just holding this feeling of peace and this feeling of compassion. And not only was there a break in the conflict that was going on over there between the nations, the crime rate went down, the murder rate went down, the rate of accidents went down, and this was quantifiable. I wish I could remember. It was like the World Peace Project or something like that. I have to go back and look at his stuff, but this was quantifiable. Yeah, I just saw Joe popped up there. The Divine Matrix. I think he talks about this in the Divine Matrix, but I actually looked at the study and looked at what they did. It's very quantifiable. And so then they took it to other cities as well, and they saw the same thing. They saw the same patterns emerging. Now, what's also interesting is one of the organizations that Greg Braden works with, they measure somehow resonance. I can't remember how they do it. I'm going to come back next week with all my stuff, or you can just probably read about it in the Divine Matrix. But like when 9/11 happened, they saw a huge spike, which they attributed to the corporate emotional shock that everyone was feeling, that created a wave or a ripple in this field. So, the implications of it, I guess what I'm saying is, if this is really true, and if there is a vibration to love, if there is a vibration to compassion, if there's a vibration to peace, and we can send that out, and then it has a rippling effect in everything and everyone around us, I think that's one way that we can take it and practically apply it to today's problems.
Yeah. I mean, exactly. That's what I'm getting at. What if, I think that the quantum physicists who are proffering string theory as an undergirding principle of quantum mechanics, I think that they're on to something.
Mm-hmm.
I really believe that. I don't think that the string theory is the holy grail. Just like we started off with an understanding of molecular components, and from that we were able to come up with the periodic table. And the periodic table identified what was atomic, right? And that word atomic means indivisible, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we come to find out that atoms themselves are divided into protons, neutrons, and electrons, right? But then we find we get to the John Clerk Maxwell and the advent of quantum physics, and we say, okay, now protons, neutrons, and electrons are further divisible into leptons, bosons, and quarks, right? And now we say, okay, that string theory says that basically it's simple strings of energy that undergird all of that. But if we split the hair further, right, it's just like, and again, I'm telling you guys got to go back and watch this movie, because this movie is like fucking mind blowing. But I've always been fascinated with the Mandelbrot patterns, right? And then when you look at this thing, you break down a Mandelbrot, and you look at any part of it, and the further you go, you see the DNA of the original pattern, the macro pattern at a micro level, and the further you go, it's like you're always seeing some variation of it, and then you'll see a repetition of the larger pattern. So it's like you start off with the molecular, you go to the atomic, you go to the subatomic, you go to the particle components, and you go to the strings. What's beneath the strings? I guess that's what I'm getting at. Yeah. And the further we split the hair, right, the more we're going to see repetition of patterns, right? But all of this is to say, okay, at some level, we know from our little thought experiment with the glass and the table, with our forehead, that we know that vibration is a thing. We know that vibration is the thing that that makes perception
Mm-hmm.
of matter, of energy possible. But what if we come to the point where we're able to not simply harness this vibration, but to understand our place in it
Mm-hmm.
and our contribution to it? I'm just really, call me optimistic, Aaron. But this, I think, is world changing.
Yeah, for sure.
But
For sure.
you want to hit the comments?
Yeah. Oh, by the way, it's called the Lebanon Peace Project. If anybody wants to look that up, they brought together experienced transcendental meditators and saw, according to this,
What
76
is it called again? The
Lebanon Peace Project. They saw a 76% dip when they were in intense, focused meditation in war-related deaths, car accidents, fires, etc.
Huh.
All right. So Joe says Tesla went to his grave convinced that ether was foundational. Interesting.
Yeah, that was something that there, for a long time it was believed that there was this ether
Mhm.
that stood in between the space, in between the atomic space, because it was the experiment was that when they would shine light through a vacuum, that the light was altered.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a Michelson-Morley experiment. Is that what you're referring
Yeah,
to?
yeah, and so and because people have had variations of this where they've slowed down light to, like, 38 feet per second or something really crazy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that was the premise behind this, was that there's this ether that basically stood in between all the atomic particles of matter. But now the conventional wisdom is there is no ether, Joe. But the reality is that there's something. And here's the funny thing, is that when we talk about dark matter and dark energy, we ignorantly ascribe that to space, because we know space is the vacuum of space is dark, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there are bodies of light, stars that that emit light, and then there are planetary bodies that reflect light. But we ascribe dark matter and dark energy to the realm of space. But if only 4% of the known universe is physical matter, atomic matter, a perceptible matter, then this dark matter, this dark energy must also surround, envelop, and engulf
Yeah.
us.
Yeah. If you haven't read the Divine, have you read the Divine Matrix, Derrick?
No, I haven't. No,
I
so
would, I would highly recommend. It's a really easy, short read. But Greg Braden goes into Michelson-Morley experiment, and he also goes into quantum physics a little bit, if I remember correctly. It's been probably a decade since I read that book, but he talks about vibration. He talks about the field. He talks about how we speak to the field with our feelings, and then also how the field itself mirrors back to us our attitudes. And so it's a really good read. When I first read it, I will say this about it, because you're a really scientific guy. It's not a scientific text, and so when I first read it, I thought, I don't know, man. Sounds like Braden's just using lots of pseudoscience and stuff here. And then I had the opportunity to go to one of his conferences. So the deal was, the publishers wanted to make the book very digestible for the average reader. So how do I? Yeah, I don't need to say what I was going to say because I was going to be a little insulting about it. But I was going to say they're going to dumb it down. So there, I said it.
Yeah. I mean, that's
when I went to his conference, he had piles of studies, and he really knows how to get into the science and really knows how to interpret, and was a scientist himself. And so I came away from the conference of spending 3 days with them with a totally different impression than from reading the book. But the book is still a really, really good read. I'm going to have to exit because I'm a bachelor tonight, and I got to go deal with something with my kid. So,
yeah, no problem,
really sorry, but I can't put it off anymore.
Oh man, you got to do it family first. You got to do what you got to do.
I can exit while I deal with it, and then come back if you want to go through some of the comments.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that.
All right.
And
all right, I'll be back, guys. Sorry.
Okay, and then I'm going to put the link to the show on here in case anybody wants to join in. But I hope that you guys have enjoyed and were encouraged or edified or educated by this, because this, man, this is just like one of the most profound things. And let me say this real quick too. I have this up on the screen here, Cymoscope images, right? And a Cymoscope is basically a device by which they are able to translate sound into patterns. And this right here, I was talking about musical notes. And so the first image is a piano note, and this is an A2. Then the next one is a B2. Then the third is a C sharp, a C sharp second, a D sharp second, an F2, and this is, remember when we were talking earlier about F notes, right? If you notice this, look at all the dark space in the F note, in F2. This is actually the fifth from left on the top row. And how I mentioned that an F is a dark tone. It's like when they would play like in Western movies, when the villain appeared, it was always in the key of F. No, I'm sorry. That the villain always came in on the E. I'm sorry, on the E note. But F notes are car horns or sirens, right? Those are typical, and they sound an alarm. The last one on the top row is a G2, and a G. If you look at that, the G2, and then beneath it, directly beneath it, is a G sharp 2, which those are happy notes. G's are typically like if you want a happy music, a party song, it's gonna start off in the key of G. And it's just kind of a weird thing. But I'm going to go through. I want to go through the comments, and also I want to, let me go out here to Facebook real quick, because in order to share the let's see, hang on for just a second, folks. Let's see. I need, I have to. There we go. All right. So anybody that wants to join in on the conversation can click the link and they can join in. If you're watching on YouTube, you may not be able to click the link and join in directly. You may have to copy the link and put it in your browser, and then you can join. And if that doesn't work, it just means you need to update your browser. That's just kind of the way that Tootsie rolls. But so I'm going to go back up here to the top of the comments. A lot of comments tonight, and I really appreciate everybody who watched and everybody who's commenting. Sandra Whitley, thank you, Sandra. You say, hey guys, happy freaking Freeology Friday. And Kendra Bell says, happy Friday, and science saves. Yes, it does. Science is our savior. Sandra says, I saw a video recently about plants having sounds of vibrations too, which doesn't surprise me. It's a beautiful thing. Listen, I've learned, I'm sort of an amateur horticulturalist. I love my plants, and I talk to my plants. I talk to my plants like I talk to my pets. And I think that by speaking to plants, you get better growth results from your plants. So another thing too is that Sandra, is that when plants emerge from the soil, if you look at a time lapse video of the if you look at a time lapse video of plants emerging from the soil, what you'll see is they follow the pattern of the golden ratio as they emerge from the ground, which I think that's really amazing too. Ben Urban says hello. Oh, there's Aaron. He's back.
Hello. I'm back for now.
Ben said he didn't receive a notification. I don't know why that is. And then Sandra says that she had to sign up for the notifications again. Damn you, Facebook! Damn you!
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. They're trying to censor us.
Yeah, that's it, man. They're trying to cut us off. So Joe Mashuda had a lot of good comments here. He said, so you're telling me that when I get cut off in traffic, I can just blow my horn? I don't have to scream, fuck you, and then throw up my middle finger? Absolutely right, Joe. Just honk your fucking horn, man. Don't be a dick. No, just kidding. Hey, but Joe, to be fair, I'm not above telling other drivers, hey, you're number one. And Sandra says, I'm telling y'all, read Don Miguel Ruiz's book, Beyond Fear. All this goes together and connects some dots. I believe he wrote it in 1997. I haven't read that. I've heard of it, but I've never read it.
I've read the Four Agreements and some other of his books, but I haven't even ever heard of it. Ben says, I can't live in a world without music, just like religious people can't live in a world without their God.
Could it be the music is God?
Wouldn't that be something?
Yeah. You know, there's a band from the 70s. One of my favorite bands is called the Average White Band. I don't know if you've ever heard of them or not, but they believe it or not, they were an R&B band from Scotland.
Wow.
And the only black dude in the band was the drummer. It's like all the rest of these, they're long-haired hippie white guys, right? But they play some of the funkiest music.
Wow.
But they made this song, and I encourage all of you to listen to it. It's called Queen of My Soul. And it's the lyrics are written to music. In other words, it's an ode to music. Yeah. And music is the queen of the soul.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
So Joe says, I use binaural beats to meditate, and those states really exist. So that's when I was talking about how sound can manipulate your brainwave patterns. He said, I meditate to theta rain all the time.
So Jimmy's in the green room. I'm going to bring him in.
Right on.
Hey, Aaron. Hey, guys.
How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I have no idea what the hell you guys are talking about. I logged in. I was a little late getting to the party because we girlfriend had cooked dinner and everything. Huh?
I said we don't know what we're talking about either. So
I'm just like, because I was just trying to catch on to what you guys are talking about. I was like, color me confused because I don't know where you guys are going. And then you said something about what did you say? You said something about not existing when you leave. You shed your receptors of reality or whatever. And I was like,
that's what Aaron said. Yeah.
yeah, I was like, yeah, I don't know what you guys are talking about. I would love to contribute. I just wanted to say hi because I don't know what you guys are talking about. I'm like, I feel like an idiot, but it is what it is. But I was like, what are my dudes talking about? I wish I could join in and contribute something.
Here, I want to give you a shout out, man. You kicked ass last night.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm just, you know what? I'm just going to approach this and just be myself. The only thing I can do. Yep. And I like, you know, I figured I'd be more active in the community since I'm going to be a part of the community. So I wanted to listen because I only listened to Freology maybe twice before today, to be honest with you. And and then the one time I was on when I was watching a while ago, it was a couple months ago, I think. Yep. And I got to talk to you guys. And then I was on Unreligious with Derrick a few weeks ago. And then he decided to go ahead and offer me a chance to be part of the community. So I want to take advantage of that. But yeah, I was watching. I was like, you know, Derrick said all this stuff about me being intelligent. I don't know how right he was. I was like, yeah, it's a little bit over my head, brothers. No, but anyway, but I enjoy listening because I'm trying to learn something. Because I don't know, like my expertise is all about talking about things that, you know, conspiracy theories, religion, superstition, reality, science on a basic level when it comes to science. Like I said, I'm not I don't know all the ins and outs of quantum physics and all that kind of stuff, but basically I just, you know, trying to get people to think the right way, like dismiss all of the nonsense and just deal with what's real, which you guys are doing on Freology, and you guys go off into specific areas of thought. And one thing I can say, it does make you think. What you guys are talking about, it does.
Well, see, that's the thing. Thinking makes you free.
Yes,
I really believe that you can't be free unless you're thinking. You have to be fully engaged, and that's what Aaron and I try to do. Is we try to stimulate thought because you know. I really believe that in order for, we were talking about participating in consciousness, right? You can't passively participate. You have to actually actively contribute, and that requires thought. That's
right.
My thing.
Yeah, because my dad used to always tell me when I was a kid, use your head for more than a hat rack. He said, you have to think before you do almost everything. And he said you can't just react. You can't go through your life reacting to stuff because you'll always be behind the 8 ball, and you'll always find yourself trying to play a game of catch up. If you take the time to think about what you want to do, what your plans are, how you're going to do it, how are you going to deal with this situation, should this arise? Because he says if you look at life in certain aspects, like you're playing chess, you'll find that things are like not a lot will surprise you to the point where you're like, oh, I don't know what to do. If you think 2, 3, 4, 5 moves ahead, you're pretty much like, oh, okay, so yeah, so I know what to do if this happens or this happens or whatever. And unfortunately, some very bad things happen, but at least you know what to do. But you have to deal with the emotional thing separately from that. But I always thought thinking was a lot more fun than not thinking.
Yeah,
for sure.
Like the guy on the news. I think I'm gonna. No, I'm not gonna wait till next week. I just want to mention it real quick. This kid got caught because he was speeding from the police, and he recorded it on his phone. And they have all the evidence they need. Now he's gonna be in jail. He's got a felony charge for it from now. And all they wanted to do was see his license and registration, and he just sped off. I'm like, what is up with these young kids today? That was a dumb decision. So he was not thinking at all. So
True.
that was crazy. I was just like, wow.
Aaron, I saw you were about to chime in, and we kind of got. What were you saying there?
Oh, I was just gonna tell Jimmy welcome to the community. I'm excited that you.
Oh, thanks, Aaron. I appreciate it. I was telling Derrick last night I want to get to know you better. So
yeah, likewise.
Yeah, cool stuff. Anyway, I don't want to monopolize the time. I just wanted to chime in and say hi. That I'm watching you guys, and I appreciate everything you're doing for me. And I'll be ready tomorrow morning at 9, Derrick. So
right on, man.
All right, you guys have a good night.
All right, you too, Jimmy.
Great night.
Be good, man.
Yep.
Yep. So, I got to get Jimmy up to speed on Restream. I did a session with Daryl, and I don't know if he recorded last Sunday or not. I don't recall seeing it, but I know that he was setting up. He's all set up and ready to go.
Yeah. I need you to walk me. I need you to walk me through that again, so I can use it on Sunday mornings.
Okay.
And then I'm like dragging ass on Sunday, and I look at the phone. The time is like, oh, it's 10 o'clock. I didn't get a hold of Derrick again, and I don't know if he's using it. He might be on doing his.
No. Because here's the thing. I'll just for the record, I'm going to make sure I'm doing mine after yours.
All right.
So
I'm the late comer here. So am I messing you up? Am I the one that needs to adjust? I guess we can talk about this later.
Yeah. Do we have any more comments? We got a few more comments. I'll let you go ahead and take over the comments. I've been dominating them. So
let's see. Shannon Morris says there are some people that I don't listen to because their voice is so irritating. Their voice is so irritating. She says they're usually women. You know who the first person I thought of when I read that? Andrew Womack. I could never listen to him, man.
You know something? This is a funny story because Andrew Womack was my gateway drug into grace.
Yeah, I know. That's why I brought it up.
Yeah. And I'll never forget. I'll do my best Andrew Womack imitation, but he said on today's broadcast,
that's pretty good.
I want to talk about, he said, I'm going to continue my series on a better way to pray. And the topic of today's message is hypocrites love to pray. And that was what, I was a Word of Faith / Pentecostal preacher up until that point.
Yeah. Yeah. He was just up the road from us. He was a lifelong Colorado boy, though. He got his start out east, not too far from where I live.
Yep. Colorado. Well, is it Colorado Springs, right?
He's in Springs now, and has been for years. Decades. Let's see. Ben sent a link to something. Listen to this and call me in the morning. Probably a song. Saunders says they already do this in some Aboriginal communities.
She says, when you've had an MRI, did you pay attention to that sound? Yes, I did, Sandra. Yes, I did. I had an MRI last year, and yes, I did pay attention. Or CT scans, because there's a resonance to both of those.
Yeah, I hated my MRI, and I'll never have to do it again. Because I now have metal in my body.
Good on you, mate.
Yeah. Ben says spirituality differs from religion in that each person treks his or her own thoroughfare versus being restricted to one path that is necessary for each devotee. The universe is conscious. There's a book out there called The Conscious Universe, and I have a lot of respect for the guy that wrote it. And it's like over 1,200 pages or something. I was like, forget it.
The Conscious Universe?
Yeah. I think it was like, when I looked at it, I was going to download it, and it was like, I want to say it was like 800 or 1,000 pages. I don't do huge books like that. It's just not my thing. Lazy, huh?
No, man. You know what? Here's the thing. I recognize that I'm not going to read everything.
Yeah.
So when somebody presents a really massive tome to me, I'm like, okay, let me see if I can find, the relevant high points,
Parts of
right?
it. Yeah. Yeah.
The highlights, and then I'll write those down and catalog them. But I have to admit, like you just said, being lazy, and I'm the same way.
It's time
I know
consuming.
that I'm not going to read everything. People say, "Oh, you need to read this book or read that book," But I want to say this because who said this? This was back here. Oh shit! Now I missed it. I missed it. Hang on for a second because this comment was really, really, really good. Come on, Derrick, find it. Oh, somebody's in the green room. Ben Urban's in the green room.
I'm gonna let Ben take over for me.
Okay.
So I can go finish dealing with a certain situation. So on that note, I'm gonna peace out, and you and Ben talk away. But I gotta go, man.
All right, man.
All right.
The usual.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
All right.
Okay.
Later.
All right. Love you too, man. Big Bad Ben.
Yeah. Hey, Derrick.
Okay. Later. All right. Love you too, man.
Why do we have an echo?
Hey, Derrick.
Okay. Later.
Oh, it's your computer, Ben.
Yep.
Why do we have an echo?
I love you too, Aaron. It's good to see you, man.
Good to see you too.
So great talk Definitely really good stuff.
Oh, this was, I didn't realize how many rabbit holes we dig on this, but man, I'm just of the mindset that if we get this, understand the role of vibration to our physical being, to our psyche. I really believe that this is the genesis of changing things in a really meaningful way.
Yeah, I didn't know what Cymatics was, so I looked it up real quick before listening to you guys tonight.
Yeah,
and I still really didn't know by the definition I saw, but the way you guys are talking about it, it's a really deep thing. It's amazing. I mean, you're so focused on consciousness tonight, and I think that's everything. Being conscious. Too many people are asleep in this world.
Yeah.
In one way or another, and I think true godliness, true ascension, just reaching beyond is waking up and just taking everything in when it comes to you, like experiencing everything at its highest point. And I think that's a big thing why religion just fails exponentially, because it dumbs down everything that matters to the human experience. And we are supposedly the image bearers of God. So if we're the image bearers of God, wouldn't a potential God that actually exists want the best for us and for us to experience everything at a high point all the time, to truly enjoy every possible moment and get the most out of it, instead of this legalism, this asceticism that just encompasses religion. So
you know what, this is the thing that I was thinking about cymatics, is this, that if all is vibration, right, and we're able to tap into the overarching vibration of existence, of consciousness, right? And if this consciousness pervades and and it inundates everything, what that means is that there is information that is stored even in inanimate objects. And so watch this. I learned something, that all of the water that exists in the world is all the water that's ever existed. No new water is being made. All the water that there is all there's ever been. So water is permeable and malleable, right? That's why Bruce Lee was like, be like water. The water, when it's in the teapot, it becomes the teapot. When it's in the cup, it becomes the cup. Water, when it's when it's broad, it covers things, but when it's focused, it can cut steel, right? But here's the thing, that all of this water has been here as long as the earth has been here, and it has been collecting and retaining the vibration of everything that has ever existed. What if we were able to tap into this vibration and hear the stories the water has to tell? Or if we look at the very rocks, the mountains, the terra firma, and we're able to tap into the vibration, and we're able to hear the stories that the earth has to tell. How much does that change humanity? And like I said, I've reached a point in my life where I say there is no such thing as an inanimate object. Everything is animate, because everything is vibration, and because everything is vibration, everything is part of the collective consciousness.
Locomotion is the vehicle of change, which keeps the universe cycling.
Yeah. I mean, but it's like not just locomotion, which speaks to the physical motion, but what about the motion of our energy, the motion of our aura, the motion of our chakra, the motion of our psyche, the motion of our spirit, the motion of our energy. And man, I'm going to tell you something. Right now, I'm having trouble sitting still.
Wow.
I mean, this is how profoundly this has moved me. And I remember like earlier this week, I think it was Tuesday, I reached out to Aaron and I said, hey, what do you think about this as a subject? And Aaron is like, well, sure, let's go. And I was like, I was really excited, and I'm studying, and I'm looking at this and looking at the potential ramifications, because here's the thing. Humanity is sick right now. Humanity is ill. But it is ill because imagine if in your body that your spinal cord was somehow detached from your spine. Or even better, let's say your spinal cord was detached from your brain. At that point, motor functions become impossible, because it's like, what is the control is separated from the data bus. And how does it communicate with the rest of it? So, there are all people, and we all have a function within the body of humanity. But if our consciousness is severed, or there are walls that are created between our individual consciousness, how can the body communicate? How can how can autonomous data, things like digestion or breathing or or the lymphatic. How can all of these things happen? And then going to your point, you were talking about locomotion. How can locomotion happen if there's no communication between the head and the body? And so I think about all of this in terms of connection. And so let me say this, like cymatics, the word cyma, it has to do with rhythm or vibration. And I think about in music, in music, a drum beat is key to any musical piece. That the strength or the accent, the power of the drum is something that's essential to music. And so I think about this, that cymatics also is related etymologically to cymbals, right? So it's like right. Right. It's like that. The cymbal is what accentuates the drum beat. The drum beat is the undergirding, but the cymbals are the accent. So the cymatics is like it's the accent to consciousness. And man, I'm telling you, I'm serious. I'm having trouble fucking keeping still right now because this so excites me.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. You know, I've definitely felt that before too, where you're just caught up in that emotional pocket, you know, where you just can't settle down because something is just filling you, you know, and you can't explain it. Or maybe you can, but it's just very enriching.
Yeah. I mean, it's not just enriching. It's like if you think about this, like your heartbeat, right? You can't without your heartbeat, you're not alive. So there's this rhythm that actually drives life.
Yeah.
And so this cymatics, if I could be so bold, it's the vibration of life.
Yeah.
Man, I may not even be able to sleep tonight. God, I'm like so fired up right now. But yeah, man, that's pretty much the deal. It's like Shannon Morris, she had some good comments here. She says, we are light, art, music, literature, dance, emoting, and all of that is absolutely true. And Sandra says that etherealness is impossible without density and heaviness. And that's the whole principle of gravity in quantum physics. It's like we know that gravity exists, we just don't know what actually drives it, right? But then we go back to string theory. String theory actually gives us the particle known as the graviton, which actually allows us to quantify gravity.
Well, I have to say this about Shannon Morris because she is a regular contributor to my comments and sharing cycle of my musings, my daily musings, and her commentary, I can tell she is constantly receiving some inspiration like every day, because she puts out some really incredible stuff that is like she should just write this down on her own page, because the stuff she just comments on mine, I'm like, okay, you need to do your own thing. What she's putting out there is amazing. So
well, I mean, let me say this. I'm not gonna, what you put out is amazing. And so I really believe that what you put out, the quality of what you put out is often is reciprocated, right? And So you put out quality posts, you get quality responses. That's kind of how it works.
I'd hope so.
Yeah. No, but you put out really good stuff. I've been kind of like trying to dial back my time on Facebook. But dude, whenever I get out there, I'm always looking for your stuff.
Oh, I know, and you are definitely somebody who has been very helpful in getting my message out there. I feel like you were a big contributor to just my upward movement in general. Not just in that area, but like you've been very inspirational to me in general. So
Thank you, man.
thank you.
No, the thing is that if each of us, if each one reaches one, we can change the world. It's like I think it was Archimedes that said, "Give me a lever long enough and I can move the world." Each one reach one.
And I'm gonna go here because I feel like me and Kyle Butler are really on the same page with this. Big shocker because we tend to be like very lined up all the time, but he's really been on an affirmation kick lately, and
Yep.
there's nothing more positive and uplifting than positive messages to yourself, because if you're not building yourself up, you're not going to build anybody else up. You're going to be caught up in this constant wave of projection,
Yeah.
hating yourself and then hating others because you're just looking for every negative thing in them that reminds you of you. And it's horrible. I mean, and a lot of that has to do with, the religious bent, this idea, this self-depreciative conditioning that just eats you up. It just tells you, oh, you're not good enough. Here's some more indoctrinated self-hatred.
I get into a really protracted debate on my public page with a couple of people because I was saying that, hey, take care of yourself first.
Yeah.
And this is funny because like there are some people that they say, oh, you have to look after others first. And I remember the old acronym from Christianity, JOY, Jesus, others, and you, or
Right.
Jesus, others, and yourself.
So
And I
messed
think
up.
that's bullshit.
It is.
Like the most profound gospel message that I ever heard was, and I hear it every time I get on an airplane. It says, in the event of cabin depressurization, oxygen masks will fall from the overhead. Place the mask on your face before assisting others.
Right.
In other words, if you're no good, you can't help anybody. And one of the things that I see happening all the time is people are trying to help others before they help themselves. And you can't wring water from a dry sponge.
Right. Yeah. An empty vessel doesn't help anybody. Doesn't fill anyone up.
Exactly. And that's the thing. So I said, listen, self first. Take care of yourself first. I talk about, my kids. People say, oh, will you eat before your kids? I'm like, if I'm going to be the one to take care of my kids, if I'm going to be the one to protect my kids, I need to have some energy in order to do this. So yes, I'm going to eat first. And
Right.
and normally, like one of my muses these days is the author and business consultant Simon Sinek. And Simon Sinek wrote a book called Leaders Eat Last. And it's based on a Marine Corps principle that that when they have chow, the troops eat before the leaders do. And while I think that has a certain nobility to it, I don't think that it's really effective, because if you're going to lead, you have to have the power to lead. And that means that you have to have something in your tank first. I'm not saying that, let your charge starve or let
No.
your children starve. No, I'm just saying that, make sure you take care of yourself, especially if you're in a position of leadership,
No,
because
but right there, though, the light bulb went off because, if you're not taking care of yourself, you're setting an example of deprivation. So
Yep.
basically, you might help for a little while by putting others completely first before you. But if you die and they just assume, well, I'm supposed to start depriving myself, it's just going to become a cycle of like one person dying just to keep others going.
Yep.
Instead of a balance of, I'm going to take care of myself to make sure that I can take care of you and we can all make it. If we all just moderate up until the point of getting back to a balance.
Yep. Got to take care of yourself.
It's not selfish,
No.
as long as you are helping after you make sure you're plentiful, enough.
So I want to go back to something that Sandra said. She was saying that humbleness is not weak. Humbleness is void of arrogance. That's strength. Well, Sandra, I'm gonna disagree with you on that because let me say this. I don't think I think that what happens is that people conflate arrogance with confidence, and when they conflate arrogance with confidence, then confidence is the concept that suffers, right? And I really believe that if we get past humbleness, in other words, everybody's trying to be self-deprecating because it's pious and it speaks
Well, that
to.
bullshit. Yeah.
But honestly, if we were to say instead of saying making humility the baseline, make confidence the baseline. In other words, I know what I know, and I know what I can do. And if you know that you know, then you have no problem with executing. Well, here's what happens is that when you conflate confidence with arrogance, you believe that because your self-assessment says that because I'm confident that I must be arrogant, and so in other words, I need to tone it down and embrace humility instead. So what happens is that instead of what you have to contribute bubbling up to the surface, it gets buried. And I think that that's a tragedy. And so I'm not completely disagreeing with you, Sandra. I really believe that humility is horribly overrated, just like forgiveness. But that's the view from my porch. So, Ben, I'm going to give you the last word, and then I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. I got to get something to eat, man.
Thank you for listening to our TED Talk.
Perfect, man. All right. Love y'all. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for spending time with us on a Friday night. Ben, thank you for coming on and sharing your wisdom. Ben Urban, guys, follow him. Check out what he's posting. Comment on it, share it, all of that stuff. And also this video, if you like it, if it's encouraged you, if it's edified you or in any way, please share it. Let someone else know what's going on. And Ben already said thanks for coming to our TED Talk. So with that being said, peace and hair grease.
Thank you, Derrick.
Thank you, Ben. Love you, man.